I think it's working. Hi, Jen, your fairy TransMother here. Sorry, story time's a little late. I slept in late. So anyway, glad you could be here. Hope you're all doing good on this rainy day. Remember, no rain, no rainbows. And my butterfly wings are crooked. Sorry. Better. So today, I'd like to introduce you to some of my monster friends and read to you 2, 3, maybe 4 little stories that involve monsters in one way or another. But do they really involve monsters? Because there are all kinds of monsters, and I personally haven't met any that are really actually bad. And and you're perfectly allowed to have your own monsters and be scared of whatever it is you might be scared of, and that's all legit. And if anyone tells you, "Oh, why are you afraid of that?" well, then tell them to go. Yes. Anyway, so I'd like to introduce you first to some of my monster friends. Okay. First, it's taking a second here. First, we have, I want to say octopus, but it's really like unipus, because it's only one. Actually, the rest of their legs, tentacle thingies are underground. And this is my hand. It's not really my hand, but it's one of my friends. One of my hands. It's my friend hand. And some people might look at this and say, "Oh my gosh, it's just a hand, and that's scary." And that's okay. And some people might look at an octopus or a unipus and say, "Scary," and that's okay too. But yes, so unipus and hand, and they're going to go away right now. I'm going to try to make as many pop sounds out of the monsters as possible. I have a lot of monster fingers. Here are 2 other monsters of my friends of mine. I don't know where the video ends on the lower part. I don't know, but I'm going to go with this line and hope that's right. This monster glows in the dark. This one doesn't, but they're great pals. Ha 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 ha. And but some people might look at these monsters and say, "Scary!" And that's perfectly fine, especially because they're in this kind of like weird, perhaps threatening position. But in this monster culture, that's actually a sign of hello, hello, sort of like namaste in other traditions, or jazz hands. Anyway, these are 2 friends of mine. Just wanted to introduce them to you. I forget their names. Oh, Glowy, sorry, yes, Glowy, and, not Glowy. Okay, anyway, here's, I'll get you 2 more. I love that sound. Alright, we'll get a little different now. So this is my friend Creature. Hails from a black lagoon, and as far as I know, the name of it just calls himself Creature. And so I hope you like to meet Creature. Sometimes he likes to say things if I press his tummy. Oh. See, I got this at a thrift store, and only one eye glows green, which in a way makes it scarier. But anyway, the Creature in my little world is actually very friendly, but he can't do anything more than sit. His legs don't move. So it's a city monster. A city monster. Anyway, thank you. Bye. Let's see. Who else do we have? Oh! Now, some people would consider dinosaurs monsters. And that's totally fine if you do, and it's totally fine if you're scared of them. Really? Excuse me. Okay, so anyway, this is a monster named Rex. Original name, it's like naming a dog Spot. Ha, ha, ha. Anyway, this is Rex, and Rex is gonna go by now, okay? Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Now, you've met this monster before. At least some would consider him a monster. It's King Kong, and this is the one with the really cute butt. Sorry, parents. Not sorry. Anyway, this King Kong has been featured in a few movies, and has always been portrayed as somebody like dangerous, but really, you know, he was taken from his home. And anyway, that's a long story, but this is Kong, and he's very, very friendly. Right? Right. Okay, bye. One of Kong's friends, we've also introduced you to in our very first episode of Storytime with Jenn, your fairy TransMother, Godzilla. Godzilla is my personal favorite monster. In fact, I'm wearing Godzilla earrings. I don't know if you can see them, but there's Godzilla. If you really look closely, he's eating a train. Monster's gotta eat. Anyway, so this Godzilla, and he has a cute little tail. And yes, so thanks for appearing on this episode, Godzilla. Ow. And anyway, this is Godzilla. Bye! That's the worst Godzilla imitation sound I've ever made. So this is a monster you met the other day on, I think it was the second episode of Storytime with Jenn, your fairy TransMother. And this monster is named Spitty, and some of you can tell I haven't named the monsters before, and I'm just making them up. Now, if you would stop spitting your tongue fire things at my face, that would be nice. Okay. Anyway, this is Spitty, and if you think Spitty is scary, that's okay. Because it's kind of creepy. And if you don't think it's scary, that's okay too. Bye. Let's see. Oh, yes. Dun, 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 dun. This is Jaws, and a lot of people think sharks are scary and even monstrous, and I suppose some of them can be. So if you're afraid of sharks, totally legit. This shark, though, is very, very friendly. It's very, very friendly, and yes, but now he's going to swim away. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, who else do we have here? Now, other cultures, I've introduced you to Ganesh, and don't get offended yet. This Ganesh is not a monster, but some people might look at Ganesh, an elephant head on a maybe human body with 4 arms. Some might look at that and say, "Oh my God, that's monstrous!" But in this culture, in the Hindu culture, it is not monstrous. It is a wonderful deity that helps remove obstacles and has a little Om symbol on his hand. And he's really one of the most popular deities in the Hindu tradition. I myself have written many songs dedicated to him. And so even though it might look monstrous, Ganesh is very nice. And if Ganesh scares you just by looking at him, that's okay too. He's actually very sweet. And Godzilla's head is falling in my cereal bowl, so I had to take that into account. Now, some people might find this next one particularly scary. And, sorry, my hair is stuck in its bottom. Because it's a zombie. Now, it looks a little scary, and I suppose he's eating a brain, which, yeah, parents may not approve of. But, you know, there's this old saying, "I love you so much I could eat you." Actually, yes. Anyway, so this is Zomb. And this might scare some people because it has 6 arms and little antenna thingies, but it's also very nice. And so yes, it's named what's your name again? Oh, of course, Bob. This is Bob. Zomb Bob. Okay. Nah. Alright. Oh, of course. There's a smaller Godzilla that I also have. This is the first Godzilla doll I ever bought and found. He too has a wiggly tail. Very, 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 very friendly Godzilla. In many of the Godzilla movies, if you've seen them, sometimes he's very mad and angry and eats trains. And other times he saves the world. Which, anyway. It's even worse than the first Godzilla imitation I did. Ah, yes, okay. Get a couple other monsters here, and then it'll probably be close to story time. But first, hang on. Be right there with some more monsters. Kind of, you know what? I didn't plan this right because I have all these rings on, and it's kind of hard getting these monsters over the rings, as you'll soon see. Okay, so this is Uni. Hi! And with the bent horn. Ha! Now, I, of course, do not think unicorns are monsters. No way! But some people might, because they see a creature with a bent horn and a weird rainbowy thing and go, ah! 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 But, of course, all unicorns are friendly. Indeed. And some people might think this puppy is mean and monstrous. Because he kind of looks it. But he's actually very nice too. A lot of like pit bulls, you know? Like people don't like to adopt pit bulls because they think they're mean dogs. But they're only mean if you make them mean. So anyway, this is Bull. And Bull is, I don't know why I'm making him talk with my voice. Bull's actually a very friendly monster dog, often hungry, and, excuse me. Now, Bull, yes, I am not a yum-yum. Okay. And, unicorns only... Oh, yeah, go ahead and speak for yourself. Unicorns just eat grass. And according to some little child I met in where Jenn used to work, they also eat cereal. Which makes perfect sense. Strawberry cereal, to be exact. Which is fine with me. Excuse me. Bull, I'm sorry, I'm just hungry. Don't you even think about it. Okay. Anyway, these two gotta go, and we'll see what time it is. Okay, bye. Bye. Okay. Now I gotta get them off my rings. Okay. Now let's check the magic time ring. Here's my little watch, and it says it is, in fact, story time. So, the first story I'm going to read is a very famous story. My other fairy wand is keeping the page, and it's my fairy wand, so I don't know if you can see that, but a lot of the feathers are flying about. I'm not Canadian, I'm not British either. Anyway, I dubbed thee even more awesome than you already are, because you are an amazing person who is ever watching this. I can see a couple people watching it. You're amazing. Okay. So this first story is probably a well-known story. It's in the book The Sneetches and Other Stories by Dr. Theodore Geisel. Dr. Seuss. And when I was a kid, this story actually scared the living daylights out of me. And it might scare the living daylights out of you. And, it's a little weird because, the monstery thing seems like it's following the character in the book. But yes, so this is called What Was I Scared Of? And remember, it's okay to be scared of the thing that appears to be the monster. It's okay to be scared about whatever you might be scared about. And if you are really scared about anything, tell trusted friends, parents, guardians, and write about your fears, draw them, and just know they're legit. And anyway, okay, so what was I scared of? Well, I was walking in the night, and I saw nothing scary. For I have never been afraid of anything. Not very. Then I was deep within the woods, when suddenly I spied them. I saw a pair of pale green pants with nobody inside them. I wasn't scared, but yet I stopped. What could those pants be there for? What could a pair of pants at night be standing in the air for? Now, when I first saw that pair of pants when I was a little kid, there, scared the daylights out of me that they're just a pair of pants walking around with nobody in them. And then they moved. Those empty pants. They kind of started jumping, and then my heart, I must admit, it kind of started thumping. So I got out. Just lost one of my rings. Went flying. So I got out. I got out fast. As fast as I could go, sir. I wasn't scared. But pants like that I did not care for. No, sir. Forgot most of these are 2-page pictures. I hope you can see them. After that, a week went by. Then one night in Greenwich, I had to do an errand there and fetch some Greenwich spinach. When I had fetched the spinach, I was starting back through town, when those pants raced round a corner and they almost knocked me down. I lost my Greenwich spinach. Don't touch your face. I lost my Greenwich spinach, but I didn't even care. I ran home, believe me. I had really had a scare. Now, bicycles were never made for pale green pants to ride 'em, especially spooky pale green pants with nobody inside 'em. And the next night, I was fishing for double trout on Rover River. For when those pants came rowing toward me, well, I started in a shiver. And by now, I was so frightened that I'll tell you, but I hate to. I screamed and rowed away and lost my hook and line and bait too. Of course, it's okay to admit you're afraid. Even it's also okay to hate to admit you're afraid, but everybody's afraid of something. I'd certainly be afraid of a pale green pair of pants rowing. Yes. I ran and frowned. I ran and found a brickle bush. I hid myself away, which is pretty wise. I got prickles. Just lost another ring. I'm wearing them a lot lately for these videos, and some of them are, the little bead-made ones are getting loose. I ran and found a brickle bush. I hid myself away. I got some brickles in my britches, but I stayed there anyway. I stayed all night. The next night, too. I'd be there still, no doubt, but I had to do an errand, so the next night I went out. There he is in the brickle bush. No sign of the pants that I can see. Can you? No pants. I had to do an errand. Had to pick a peck of snide in a dark and gloomy snide field that was almost 9 miles wide. I said, I do not fear those pants with nobody inside them. I said and said and said those words. I said them, but I lied 'em. There he is picking the other things there. Still no pale green pants in sight that I can see. How about you? And then I reached inside a snide bush. And the next thing that I knew, I felt my hand touch someone. And I'll bet that you know who. Who do you think it is? Okay. It was the pale green pants with nobody inside 'em. Dun, 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 dun. And there I was, caught in the snide, in that dreadful place. Those spooky empty pants and I were standing face to face. I yelled for help, I screamed, I shrieked, I howled, I yowled, I cried, oh, save me from these pale green pants with nobody inside. Did the right thing by screaming, of course. If you're ever scared of something, go ahead and scream and ask for help. But then, a strange thing happened. Why, those pants began to cry. Those pants began to tremble. They were just as scared as I. I had never heard such whimpering, and I began to see that I was just as strange to them as they were strange to me. Yeah, sometimes we're afraid of people and things that are different from us, and understandable at first, but then you realize, yeah, we're all, pretty awesome. I put my arm around their waist and sat right down beside them. I calmed them down, poor empty pants with nobody inside them. And now we meet quite often, those empty pants and I, and we never shake or tremble. We both smile and we say, hi. Hi! Now the idea of pants saying hi to me is still a bit scary, but they're very friendly pants. And that's the story from The Sneetches and Other Stories by Dr. Seuss. That's our first story. Got a piece of tape stuck in my hair. And this next story is by Lee Wallace, and it comes from a book. It's mainly for grown-ups, but it's called Stories for the Third Ear. And now, this story is about a spider and a centipede. Now, you're probably saying, well, spiders and centipedes aren't monsters, but some people are very scared of them, so they're kind of like monsters, even though they're little. And whenever I see a spider in my house, I actually leave it. And centipedes, sometimes I don't leave, but I never kill them. I just bring them outside, because they are kind of scary to me. But I've never really met a mean one. They just give me the willies. Anyway, this is called The Little Centipede. Now, there's no pictures, so So you'll have to imagine them for yourself. Can you do that? Oh, I'm sure you can. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a little centipede who got separated from his parents. And he was separated when he was so young that the poor little centipede had not yet had time to learn to walk. He was in a terrible, terrible predicament, trying to teach all of his 100 legs to work together so that he could walk. Imagine. We learn to walk on 2 legs, most of us, and that's challenging enough, but imagine having 100 legs. He had been trying for a very long time, but somehow when his front legs would go in one direction, his middle ones would go in another, and his hind legs would go yet in a third, fourth, and sometimes even in a 6th direction, until finally he would just crumble into a little ball of despair, wondering how on earth he was ever going to get to bed, because he was so tired, and his bed was all the way across the room. A long room that measured in centipede size looked like 100 miles long. And so, for the 100th time, he stood up and looked down at his 2 rows of feet and said, "Now, feet, you listen to me. First, the right side will move forward and stop. And then the left side will move forward and stop." And both sides said, "No, that's not how it goes. It's right and wrong, right and wrong. And you say left and right, and that it isn't. I don't want to be left, and I don't want to be wrong. I want to be right." And the centipede said, "Oh, no, not again. I've explained that to you 100 times. It seems that everything that the little centipede did was measured by the number of feet he had. So now, for the 100th time, I want the left side to—" "No," said the left side. "That's the wrong side." said the centipede in exasperation. "All right, then. Right side. Forward, march, and stop." So one side went forward, and then he said, "Now left side." "No," they cried. "When will you learn? It's not that. It's right and wrong. Everybody knows it's right and wrong. And we're not wrong. We're right. So you just call us right, and then we'll move." "Oh," said the centipede, "this is impossible. How am I ever going to learn to walk when these silly feet keep mixing me up with right and left and right and wrong until I don't know myself what is right from wrong?" "Oh," he said, "even I'm doing it now." And while he was sitting down with all 100 feet splayed out about him like a fringe, he heard a voice from above him. He looked up, and there he saw a big old wise spider. And the spider said, "What's the trouble, little fellow?" And the centipede explained that his silly feet wanted to fight about right and wrong, and he would not move right and would not move right or left in turn, and that no amount of explaining would get it through their silly feet, feet, yes, whatever, that's right, feet. The spider laughed a little and said, "You know, I understand." It wasn't a laugh like, "Ha ha, you." It was a laugh of identification, like, "Oh, I get that. You know, I understand. I have only 6 feet, but I remember that when I was little, it was very hard for me to sort out which foot ought to go first, and which foot ought to go next, and what was the order in which they needed to go." "Oh," said the centipede, "perhaps that will help." So he said, "Okay, everybody, stand up." And they all stood up. "Now," he said, "right proceed forward, left No," said the left. "Wrong." He said, "No, left." And they said, "No, wrong. What's right is that we want to be right. We don't want to be left. We can't be left behind. It would be silly for you to just go forward. You would just turn around in a circle and a circle. Have you ever thought of that? And the centipede looked in despair at the spider. And the spider said, "Oh, I see what the trouble is. They have mixed up how to go with what is right and wrong. And it has nothing to do with right or wrong. It has only to do with going first one side and then the other, one side then the other, and then they make a team, and then they go in the same direction all together and join in the same effort. And when they understand that, then they'll be able to proceed." So the little centipede said, "But how can I ever make them understand that? You know, they absolutely insist that it's what it should be or what it shouldn't be, and right and wrong. That's the issue. I explained that it's right and left." "No, no," said the left side. "No, no, we don't want to be left. That's the whole point. You have misunderstood us again. We are not going to get left. We want to go right with all the others, right on with them." "Oh," the centipede groaned again. "You hear?" And so the spider said, "Well, look, let me show you." And so he got up in front, and he looked over his spider's shoulder, and he said to the centipede, "Okay, now you over here." And he pointed with one of his right legs. "Move forward, 1, 2, 3, stop, right?" And the others said, "Right." And he looked on the other side, and he said, "Now, you over here," and he pointed to the left. "You move forward, 1, 2, 3, right?" And they said, "Yes." "Now that's it," he said. "So good. You're both right. Right, right. Right, 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 right. Forward, march. Right, right, good. Right, right, good. Nobody gets left. Everyone's right. Good." And before he knew it, the little centipede had reached his bed. And he turned and he said, "Thank you very much, Spider. That was very helpful. And I'll remember that all I need to remember is that all my feet are right. Then no one can be wrong. And everyone will do what's right, and no one will ever be left behind." And the spider looked at him and winked and said, "Right." All right. Now, this next story is not necessarily about a monster, but it's really strange. And so, yes, be warned. And it's by one of my favorite authors, Leonora Carrington. Parents, find her book, The Hearing Trumpet, buy it and read it. It's amazing. Anyway, The Milk of Dreams. She was a surrealist person, don't touch your face, who wrote very strange stories for children and adults, and this is one of her strangest. It's very short, but very weird. And it's called Headless John. The boy had wings instead of ears. It looked strange. "Look at my ears," he said. And the people were afraid. During the night, John liked moving his ears. And one night he moved them so much that his head flew out the window. With no head, he couldn't even try. Now, I gotta say, don't touch your face, if you wiggle your ears and wiggle your ears and wiggle your ears, your head will never fly out the window. If you look at John's ears, you might, see why his might fly out the window, because he has giant ears. He got up and he ran after his head, which was flying from tree to tree as if it were a pigeon. John's mama, who was looking out the window, saw her child running around at night. "Where are you going?" "My head took off." "What a pity," said the poor woman. "Ha ha ha ha, that's right," laughed the head. And John ran very fast, but he could not catch his head. he kept flying along, laughing. She did the illustrations too, by the way, these very dreamy illustrations. "Lend me a string," said John to a man. "Here, take it," he said. John caught his head and went home very tired, with the head jumping along behind him, firmly tied to the string. "Mama," he said, "stick on my head, please." And the mama stuck on his head with chewing gum. But because it was night time, she stuck the head on backwards. "Don't let your head escape again," she said. And from there on, John was very careful. Doo-doo, doo-doo. And the last story, I'm actually going to read from my computer. It's a story I wrote so long ago, probably 20 years ago. Sorry. There it is. Before I do, I want to show you a monster I drew back in 1986 when my name was Joe Petro. Now it's Jennifer Angelina Petro, or Jenn the Fairy TransMother to you. And I entitled it Study Number 1, September 10th, 1986, which is a long time ago. And I named this monster Miss Hampson. Now, Miss Hampson was my first grade teacher who happened to be really grumpy and mean all the time. So anyway, that's how I drew Miss Hampson. And in another video, I will maybe draw together like monsters or something. Anyway, now this is kind of a seriously sad, well, it's not sad, but it's not really about monsters at all. However, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but there have been times in my life, many times actually, where I didn't love myself. And as a transgender person, sometimes I even thought I was monstrous because it just felt so weird to be trans, and other people considered me a monster and other things like that, which isn't very friendly. I realize, of course, I'm not a monster, and being trans is awesome. But sometimes it's been hard to love myself. And I wrote this story 20 years ago, not realizing I'm trans and really not catching the wisdom of it until much later in my life. And so, again, not about monsters. It's about the idea that you may not love yourself, and that's okay. It's totally legit. Please talk to people about that with, because it's, it can be hard to feel that way. And, but over the years, I have learned to love myself and do nice things for myself. And I don't always do that, and I don't always feel that way, but I really try. Anyway, I forget what this story is called. Anyway, once upon a time, an old man and a child sat in silence by the riverside. After a while, the old man heard the child talking to himself, or so it seemed. As the old man leaned in closer to listen, these are the words he heard. "You are beautiful. I am so happy you were born," he heard the child say to himself. "I love you," the child went on. "You are the perfect weaving of sky and earth. You are a keeper of holy fire and soothing water. And I want you to be happy. So I will sing this day, sing your praises, give thanks for the life you give me. I am so grateful that you carry me with such grace and generosity. I love you. I appreciate you. Now let's go play." And then he was quiet again. Finally, the old man spoke. "That was a beautiful prayer. "Thank you," said the child. "You must love God very much." "Well, I do, but those words were not spoken for God." "Well, then, who were you talking to?" "Myself," said the child, reaching down and cupping his hand into the cool water. "Yourself?" said the old man, surprised. "Yes," laughed the child. "Don't you ever talk to yourself that way?" "No," replied the old man, staring at the flowing river. "Never." "Now's a good time to start," said the child, as he rose and took the old man by the hand. "Never has ended. The time to love yourself has come." And that's the end of that story, and that's the end of this episode of Story Time with Jenn, your fairy TransMother. Everything's moving a bit late today, so I hope you enjoyed this episode, meeting some of my monsters, and also, what was I going to say? This afternoon, after I have therapy, which I do, which is great, I have a phone session today with my awesome therapist, which is going to run into the 3 o'clock time I usually do music. So the music, that'll probably happen around 4. I'll keep you posted. But instead of doing music this time, I'm going to read and recite some poetry. Some of it I wrote, some of it I didn't, but it's all for little kids of all ages. They're funny poems, they're silly poems, and, poems are kind of like music without a tune. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you're having a good day, and I would encourage you, if your guardian people, parents, or whatevs, would allow you to go out and splash a bit in a puddle or two. And, parents, rain is not a bad thing. No rain, no rainbows. Anyway, okay, thanks for watching. Toodaloo and tinkerty-tonk.